With the NFL franchise tag deadline has finally passed us now, we're going to talk about who franchised who and who didn't get franchise tagged at all and who has become free agents. And then we're going to talk about NFL free agency and how stacked that is, even comparing to this NFL draft, which is also going to be stacked. We're just going to talk about where we rank right now, the top free agents. And then we're going to also talk about our top 10 early, and I mean early rankings for the next college football season that will be coming up on us. It is creeping up with spring practices. We've got lots to talk about when it comes to that. I'm your host, Matthew Raridan, and this is Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. I'm your host, Matthew Raridan. And guys, I mean, the franchise tag deadline came up on us. It came fast. And there are some top players that did get the tag, and there are some really top players that did not get the tag, which now have become free agents. And there's some really big names out there. And I really want to talk about it and really get your guys' opinions, but of course I want to get Ed's opinion too when it comes to this, because there's some major decisions that were made, and there's a reason why there's a deadline here. You can't just continue to wait to make these decisions. You have to do it by a certain time, and once that's done, it's done. And I mean, we are a mere week away till the new NFL calendar. I mean, yes, yeah, the NFL season just ended, but it's never really over. It just like college football, just like almost every other sport, it is continuing to go even behind the curtains, behind the scenes. There is still a lot to be done, and especially before the NFL draft. There's going to be a lot of explosion happening within the NFL. But I want to introduce my co-host here today. His name is Ed Smith.
Welcome, y'all.
And Ed, I kind of want to jump in right into this when it comes to who got the franchise tag. Some of these big name players here, and the first on the list, Josh Allen. And no, not the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. I'm talking about the linebacker for the Jacksonville Jaguars from Kentucky University Wildcat. Josh Allen. I mean, this guy, he was really highly sought when he got drafted. I mean, this is a first round draft pick here, and I feel like he started off good, then kind of slowed down, but as of late, the last couple years, he has really taken the NFL by storm. And we all know, if you are a defensive end or outside linebacker right now in the NFL, you're relevant. I'm talking about the TJ Watts, Miles Garrett's, Micah Parsons, Max Crosby, and yes, Josh Allen. You pretty much made a name for yourself, even to be in that category. And Josh Allen is indeed in that category. 24 million on the non-exclusive tag. Ed, how do you feel about Josh Allen getting that tag?
Well, you certainly saw him develop under Doug Peterson over the past couple of years. So that's a big part of this.
Mhm.
You don't want to let somebody that you have spent that much time developing into a leader of your defense, getting into the schematics of it, not just the playbook, having the playbook, but knowing the schematics and now being able to play above the schematics of your defense. That's what you spent all that time with him doing. So to let him just go and not really try to keep him in any way possible, that was just not in the cards for the Jaguars on Josh Allen. So they had to franchise him. They had to keep him there because there was really no other alternative. Because you're not going to run out and get another linebacker of that caliber that is going to be able to plug and play what Josh Allen knows in that defense, as well as get it at the price that they are franchising him for.
Yeah, the franchise tag is such a very interesting topic because It is a business decision. Just like you said with the Jaguars, they know they're not gonna get someone like him in free agency, but they know by tagging him, yes, they'll have him this next year, but, what does that do in regards to how the player feels? Because I'm a Steelers fan. We saw it up close and personal with Le'Veon Bell when we franchise tagged him those years. You know, he wanted to sit out. He was going to refuse to play, and it caused so much turmoil that he then ended up, going elsewhere. Went to the Jets. We saw his career go down the toilet, but that's kinda what it does with a lot of players. It does rub them the wrong way, and, Josh Allen is an incredible talent, and I do think that he does deserve top dollars, so be interested to see next year what he does, but another guy that has been talked about as deserving some top dollars is also in that same type of position, and that's Brian Burns with the Carolina Panthers. I mean, just last year around the trade deadline, he was probably the highest known name player that people were calling. They were calling left and right to the Panthers. Look, you guys suck. You can't even win a game. How about we'll take them off your hand, you know? And well, he has continued to show his worth, but to the likes of also $24 million on a non-exclusive tag there. So Brian Burns, I mean, you think he's going to continue to stay with Carolina after this year?
The whole point of the franchise tag on the ownership side is to use as a stall tactic, basically, to appease the player long enough to get a long term deal done. Carolina at this point is looking at Brian Burns as a foundational piece. They're at a point in their roster building that they need foundation pieces. And that's what they're saying Brian Burns is with this franchise tag. A little bit different from Josh Allen, not quite the development that Jaguars put with him, but Burns, he's going to be a guy that they want to have be their captain along with Bryce Young in the offense to really bring that team together because it was very disjointed last year, and you could tell on just by the play on the field just how disconnected everything was from the top down. This is their opportunity to try and create that foundational uh, idea to build going into the next few seasons as Bryce Young gets a little more muscle on him, gets a little more weight behind him, uh, get an offensive line that can protect him a little more than the lookout block. Look out! Uh, that's basically all they did last year. So Brian Burns, they had to keep him because that is something that they are going to need going forward, not just as a position, but as a player.
Absolutely. I think he's actually one of their biggest needs because if you remember, the last time you could think of this Carolina defense and a piece that really was the center, it was Julius Peppers. And Brian Burns could easily, take that role. I mean, and have the city behind you just like they did with Peppers. And to have him there, I feel like he needs to be there for the future. And I think they really need to work out that long-term deal with him. I think it is important for them.
Also, just as a side note, do the Panthers feel like the linebacker franchise of the NFL since they've come into the league?
Yeah.
You just go down the roster of names, and it's like, well, do they draft any other positions? Well,
Oh, just that apparently.
between
Yeah.
Kevin Green, Sam Mills, Luke
Luke
Kuechly,
Kuechly.
now Brian Burns,
Yeah.
it's
Yep.
like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Green, we like that name.
Yes, I know you love that name. And
But
his flowing locks.
absolutely, before the Patrick Tillman, but speaking of long-term deals, Kyle Duggar. This is a very interesting tag right here because this is actually the Patriots putting the transition tag on Duggar, and what that means is other teams in the NFL can actually still work out a long-term deal with Duggar, and the Patriots will get absolutely nothing for it. So it's very risky, this type of deal. The safety market is expected to actually be pretty big in free agency. I mean, just as of today, I mean, we saw Jordan Poyer get cut. Uh, and the safeties, it's going to be very loaded. But Kyle Duggar, who led the team in tackles, or at least was second on the team in tackles as a safety. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, he really has done a lot this year, career high in interceptions. But transition tag is very interesting that they did that. So I'm interested to see if other teams want to work out a long term deal with him, because if so, Patriots are screwed when it comes to that. So, yep, that's just how the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, and as a passing league, you've got to have safeties that can see the entire field from where they are. Yes, he had a lot of tackles, but if your safeties are having more tackles than anybody else, it means the rest of your defense didn't do their job the way they should have.
Yeah.
That's just always been my philosophy on defense, but it's not like Bill Belichick was listening to little Ed Smith.
Yeah.
He should, but probably not going to happen.
Yeah. It's probably why he doesn't have a job. He should have listened to you, Ed.
Right, right.
Just saying. I mean, coincidence? I think not. But uh, T. Higgins, who has really shown that he could be a wide receiver one in the NFL, although he does deal with injuries. He did get the non-exclusive tag with the Bengals for 21.8 million. But everything that I'm hearing right now is they're trying to work out a trade, possibly to trade him to a team that he can be wide receiver one. It's kind of hard when you're going against Jamar Chase. He's just a freak athlete that good luck trying to surpass him as wide receiver one. But at least they respect him enough to, well, we're going to give you this tag, but we'll try to work out a trade for you to go to a team where your talents are going to be more sought after. But that's big news there, because T. Higgins has done a lot over the last several years since he's been in the NFL. Another wide receiver, Michael Pittman Jr. with the Colts, 21.8 also. And guys, I mean, Michael Pittman deserves a lot more, in my opinion. 21.8 is not his worth. I mean, Tyreek Hill, I want to say, is the number one paid wide receiver right now at 30 million, right around there, average a year. And it's only going to go up once Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase get their deals. Justin Jefferson first, of course. But Michael Pittman deserves, not, I'm not saying to be the highest, but I think that 21.8 is a little shy with his talent and his, uh, he's dependable. This is a guy that's there every week, guy that's getting knocked out of the games by the Pittsburgh Steelers, but came right back, and the next game, he's their offense right now until they could get their ducks in a row with Anthony Richardson and then Jonathan Taylor as well. But Michael Pittman Jr., I mean, my opinion. Ed, do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. Because Michael Pittman was their number one receiver. T. Higgins is a little bit different because he was their number two.
Mhm.
And in fact, on just going back to the Bengals a second, it's a win-win for the Bengals either way. Because either way, you either get T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, the best wide receiver duo that they've had since Chad Johnson and TJ Hushmanzada, or you get value for T. Higgins. You get something in return, which a lot of these possible free agents that these franchise tags were placed on, they were placed on them to do that long-term deal with them. This is a value-added proposition for the Bengals because they're not going to be able to afford Joe Burrow's contract and Jamar Chase's contract and and
Orlando Brown.
uh, yeah, and P Ryan's. You know, they've got all these players that they've got to pay because that that rookie contract for Joe Burrow, they were quick to sign him to the long term deal,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to letting it sit for a couple more years so they could build around it in the short term and open that Super Bowl window a little wider than what it has been, because they only made the one. They got to the playoffs in another. He got hurt this year. It's one thing after another.
Yeah.
That window is closing unless they can uh, get some value for the players that they have on the roster already. So that's where that comes in for them. As far as the Colts are concerned, Michael Pittman is what made Gardner Minshew, look like a halfway decent quarterback, you know, throughout the year last year. So yes, he definitely deserves his paycheck. And this is going to be another one of those. Let's try and get him in the short term while Anthony Richardson is still on the rookie contract, so we can sign them both long term and build the roster, build the offense around these two guys.
Well, yeah, I mean, because we saw the drama going into this last year with Jonathan Taylor, who then end up actually signing an extension with the Colts. So, I mean, they have him for what, another 3 years, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So to have him, a healthy Anthony Richardson, who we've talked about before, his ceiling is very high, and Michael Pittman, we already know what he's going to bring it every Sunday. Uh, that could be a very really young talented core right there, if healthy. But you know, they do battle injuries, but that'll be something to see because Pittman is worth a lot more, and I think that he'll get a big contract come his way here probably next year. But on the opposite side of things, we had several defensive backs get the franchise tags from Jalen Johnson with the Bears, L'Jarius Sneed with the Chiefs, which that's a big one, and Antoine Winfield for the Buccaneers. And Winfield, which if you've watched the show before, David is our Tampa Bay Bucks fan. He'll be the first to tell you Winfield had an incredible year, and I will second that. Winfield did have an incredible year, and actually there was a lot of players on the Bucks that really kind of reemerged as great up and coming players, and some that are still have already been established, like Mike Evans and Winfield 17.1 million, Sneed 19.8 million, and then Jalen Johnson 19.8. Jalen Johnson, that's a big one because it was sounding like he was going to get traded last year as well, just like Brian Burns of the Panthers, and the Bears held on to him and they franchise tagged him, and 19.8 million is a lot of money there. But he's shown that he could be talented enough on that defense to earn that 19.8 million. But the Bears, they've got a lot of money to spend, and I want to see how they spend it in free agency. And I think we'll talk a little bit about that more here, but we'll have another episode where we talk more about predictions on free agency, where we see some of these guys go. But the Bears, they've got the money and they've got the leverage as well, especially with the Justin Fields trade talks. So
Do
the
they though?
Bears,
Do
well,
they though?
not on that. What I'm saying is that they've got the money regardless, and they've got the draft picks regardless. The whole Justin Fields issue, it sounds like, well, they're just going to have to give him away with, a 2 for 99 cents Jack in the Box coupon, because that's just kind of how it is right now. They kind of lowballed themselves, but it's kind of the story of their franchise right now. So who knows what they're going to do?
They're trading against a straw man for Justin Fields. I mean, apparently you're going to get a third round pick and a free toaster for Justin Fields. That's about all they're getting at this point.
Yeah, that's pretty much it's like I always laugh because you'll get a kick out of this. In Texas, you buy a truck, you get a shotgun. I've seen that at several car dealerships, and it's funny because you're thinking, I'm spending 50, 60 grand on this truck. You're gonna give me probably a $500 shotgun. Woohoo! Guess who won that deal? Not me, but but that's kind of how it is with the Justin Fields thing. They really lowballed themselves. They really did it. They shot themselves in the foot here, and now everyone's kind of playing games with him. Like, we don't really want Justin Fields anymore. I don't think there's a single team out there that's saying they want him now. So now the Bears are like, wait, 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 wait. All right, fifth round pick, take it or leave it. Final offer, deal.
I just don't understand what is either taking the Bears so long to actually get into some serious negotiations for Justin Fields, because we all know they're drafting Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
And if they don't, it'll be one of the biggest surprises since Jadeveon Clowney went first overall over Reggie Bush and Vince Young. That
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, they have this leverage because Washington has made it clear for a while now they would love to have Caleb Williams. Like they would do almost anything to have Caleb Williams. Where, you know, Chicago can make that happen and they could make a lot of I'll say money, but they could get a lot of draft picks. They get a lot of capital with that.
Mhm.
And they still I feel like they aren't jumping on it. Maybe they don't wanna be too eager, but I really don't know the direction this franchise is heading, and I'm pretty sure if there is a Bears fan out there, they'll say the same thing.
Bears are going to Bears. That's just
Kinda like the
it
Browns.
seems what it's like they're going to do.
Yeah. And then
And
our
then
last franchise what were you gonna say?
I was going to say, and L'Jarius Sneed, that is a huge pickup for Kansas City. He was the darling of the KC defense during the Super Bowl run. So having him back there to really handle that defense and what they want to do, that is a huge pickup for them. And I'm glad that they are hanging on to him because I don't know if you're going to get another player that has made so many timely plays as what L'Jarius Sneed did during the playoff run.
Yeah, he's just one of those guys just like Spagnuolo. They show up every playoff. It's
Yep.
like that's just you could count on them playoff time that they're going to show up on defense, and that's exactly what he does come the playoffs. And we all saw what he did to Tyreek Hill. He embarrassed him on that field, and part of me loves seeing it. I'm not going to lie, but our last franchise tag that was placed was Justin Matabuke of the Baltimore Ravens, who did had a really good year, I feel like, for the Ravens, but it was overshadowed, of course, when you're playing on the likes of Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen. They are going to kind of overshadow you, but I still think he was a big part of that defense and why they were so good this year. And the Ravens did ultimately place the tag on him that because they know they're probably going to lose Patrick Queen free agency. So by getting Matabuke, even though he's defensive line, they still needed to at least keep someone. So I could see easily why they placed the franchise tag on him.
Just real quick, did Patrick Queen make Matabuke relevant, or did Matabuke make Patrick Queen relevant?
I think it was contract year for Patrick Queen, and that explains it usually. I mean, we see that almost in every sport. Oh, it's contract year.
Well, I better play this
I
year.
better start playing. I gotta get paid. So a little bit of both, yeah, honestly. So good question, but I'll stick to the contract year answer. I'll go with C.
That's a safe bet.
Yeah, but I want to talk about some of these players that did not get the franchise tag that to some are pretty shocking. They are some big names. We're going to start with the biggest right now, and that is Saquon Barkley of the New York Giants. He's probably running down the yellow brick road right now, skipping, saying I'm free. He didn't get the tag, but he's gonna, maybe get the bag in free agency. Xavier McKinney from the Giants as well, another player that did not get the franchise tag from the Giants. And safety, look at that. I'm telling you, look out for these safeties come free agency. And lastly, Christian Wilkins of the Dolphins. That one was a shocker. I mean, the Dolphins they end up having to shed some money too. They released one of their star linebackers, so they are having to revamp financials on this defense, especially because you're paying Tyreek Hill 30 million. You're gonna have to figure out what you have to do with Jalen Waddle too.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got some questions that they need to answer. But those are three of the top players right there that did not get the franchise tag. Come kind of as a surprise. But what do you think about that, Ed?
The running back class coming out along with the free agency class, people are going to be going every which way. It's going to be all over the place. But what I am hearing is Saquon Barkley is starting to follow players from the Houston Texans and the organization and talking about what it's like to be in Texas versus being in New York, which I think we all know is a lot better.
Yeah.
I,
All about the Benjamins.
it, you don't
Yeah.
have to pay state tax. You don't have to pay 60% of your income, you know, to live in Texas versus what you do in New York. But also, the Texans have such a young roster. They've got money to spend, and they've got a wide open window to win. Those are three huge components that the Giants just cannot match at this point. They signed Daniel Jones to a contract of 4 years that they could get out of 2 years and say, well, it won't take us very long to get back into contention after dropping a bag on a guy that played an outlier year. He's been hurt every year except the one in which he got the bag. It's weird how that happens. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so now they they're moving on from Saquon. Xavier McKinney's going to go. They're got the number 6 pick, which the whole JJ McCarthy to Giants thing keeps picking up steam, and I have no idea why, but it's the overvalue of quarterbacks, like we talked about yesterday. So the Giants themselves kind of find themselves in a precarious position that they're rebuilding, but they're not rebuilding, and it's a weird dichotomy, with Brian Dayball there, because Brian Dayball has built his offense around Daniel Jones. They're going to draft a quarterback. It's just a matter of which one and where they do it. Do they do some draft day trades to try and move back and still get the quarterback that they want? Who knows how that's going to all play out? But the idea that the Giants are perfectly fine not having a franchise tag on anybody and just let the chips fall where they may, that tells me that they know they're in a bad spot, and they know that they need to rebuild this roster. So they are willing to let those pieces go to get some capital to go ahead and rebuild it.
Yeah, and really quick on the Saquon Barkley one is why wouldn't you wanna go to Houston? They are building something special there, and yeah, I would love to hop on, that wagon. If you are a player like Saquon Barkley is, why would you not wanna go there? You look at 2 teams here. You got the Bears, that could give you a lot of money, but then you have Houston that could also give you a lot of money. Which team you're picking? You're picking Houston, clearly, the team that made it to the playoffs, that went from a 3-win season to now playoffs. Uh, that's a team that I wanna play for, and I feel like that's the easy, clear choice, bearing they do offer you a contract.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at who they have on that offense. It won't be just him if he goes into that offense. It's C.J. Stroud. It's Tank Dell coming back from injury. You know, still on a rookie contract.
Yeah,
Uh, then it would be him. They re-signed Dalton Schultz.
Dalton Schultz, Nico Collins.
Uh huh.
Yeah, I mean,
So
they're
all of
talented.
that, all that's working together. That would be a scary offense
Mhm.
going into this next season. Adding Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, and there is a lot of bargain picks in the draft as well because
Yeah.
everything's so top heavy right now that we're forgetting about some of these players from other schools like Xavier Leggett from South Carolina, wide receiver. I mean, there's a lot of bargain players that they could even beef up that offense even more if they wanted to in the later rounds. It's just
Hmm.
there's a lot coming out of this draft, but that would be almost a match made in heaven, probably for both uh, parties there. But I want to talk about the free agents, the top 10 free agents available right now. But before I get to that, I want to talk about one of the very best cup of coffees that I've ever had. And they also support a great cause. And that is North Arrow Coffee Company. Edge drinking it right now. Don't burn your tongue. Their specialty grade coffee beans are ethically sourced and roasted to perfection, providing a rich and satisfying taste in every cup. I'm not rich, so I have to drink something that's rich, so it works out perfect. But that's not all. Every purchase of North Arrow coffee helps support life affirming organizations that provide resources and support to families in need. Plus, right now, you get 10% off your first purchase with the promo code ADP10 and support us. So don't wait. Visit northarrowcoffee.co/ADP today and start your day with a cup of coffee that truly makes a difference. So you don't want to miss out on that, guys. I assure you, it is some good coffee. But free agents, top 10 right now, and I'm sure everyone you could guess who the number one free agent right now is. That is none other than Chris Jones of the Chiefs. They have not locked up his deal yet. They could tag him, but it would cost them, I want to say, around 30 something $1 million. They don't want to do that. So that kind of tells you where they're thinking maybe his worth is possibly. Things that I'm hearing now is Chris Jones is probably gonna be on a different team next year, and that's scary. We talked about how L'Jarius Sneed shows up in playoffs. Well, so does this guy. Not just playoffs; he shows up in the regular season. Uh, he's getting his sack bonuses. We all saw him in his dance after he got that sack to get his bonus. This guy is a baller, and he's going to continue to ball no matter what team he's on. So the bag will be thrown at his way for the team that really desires him the most. He's going to bring a lot to that team. Coming in at number 2 is none other than Kirk Cousins. Uh, we've heard Atlanta. It seems like Atlanta is really in on him. It's weird to see him on another team, but this will be his third team. So he's 36. He's getting up there in age. He's had his injuries now, but he still can show he can still throw the ball easily. We talked about before Christian Wilkins of the Dolphins and Danielle Hunter from the Vikings. I mean, we're seeing right there three defensive linemen right there. I mean, in the top four free agents. So there are going to be some teams out there that could easily fill that void just with those three guys alone. So that's very big there. But here's another big one that I've seen, and that's Tyron Smith of the Dallas Cowboys. He had probably his best year in the NFL. Uh, the most stats, or sorry, the most snaps he's played ever, and he's been a staple of that offensive line. We of course Zach Martin is always going to be that, but Tyron Smith is also a staple of that offensive line. Everyone always talks about Cowboys got the best offensive line in the country. Well, there are reasons why, and well, he's one of them. He's going to be missed. I don't anticipate him coming back to Dallas based on the things that I'm hearing. But someone's going to love him. I'll tell you what, my Steelers, we need an offensive tackle, especially on the left side. But he's not going to come cheap. And so who's got the money? Not us. So someone's going to get him, just not us. But Saquon Barkley, which we've also talked about, sounds like Houston Texans would be the best match for him and for them as well. And then Jonathan Greenard from the Texans. So the Texans are probably going to, lose a piece there, but I think they're going to be just fine. Really high on the Texans and what they can do. Calvin Ridley, he's like a T. Higgins situation here where he believes he could be a wide receiver one somewhere, and he wants to show that. So he's testing free agency. So there's going to be teams that are going to want him. I know he does come with a little bit of baggage with the whole gambling situation that transpired a year before, but he showed you this year he still got it in him. It's not like he was hurt; he was just suspended. So he's still a very talented wide receiver who is going to bring a lot of expertise and talent to whatever team he goes to. And then we have Mike Onwenu from the Patriots. Their offensive line, you know, that that's something that I always want to talk about when it comes to the Patriots. They always are quietly. They have like one of the best lines. It seems like you can never name someone that's on their offensive line, but they're just always good. And so losing someone like this surely is gonna suck for the Patriots. I think the Patriots have probably the biggest uphill climb in the NFL. They don't know who their quarterback's gonna be. They don't even know who their running back's gonna be, and they're losing a lot of offensive linemen in free agency. New head coach. I mean, Bill Belichick's been there for so long. They're gonna have quite a uphill battle ahead of them, but they've got the money. I mean, they'll eventually, land on their feet, in my opinion, just like Ed said yesterday with, Russell Wilson possibly going there because it could happen. You just gotta give them time. And lastly, Leonard Williams of the Seahawks defensive edge, will also be, testing the waters in free agency. So, it's the defensive line. I mean, it seems like they really kinda take the trophy on this top 10 of uh, best available. I mean, Ed, what are your thoughts on these free agents?
Well, to your point, the defensive line is outside of quarterback seems to be the most valued position right now. Whereas just it wasn't that long ago where a lockdown corner was the position to be,
Yep, yep.
or an edge linebacker was the position to be, or wide receiver was the position to be. It's all cyclical. So right now we're in the cycle of defensive line is the cat's meow outside of the quarterback position, which is always going to be number one. When you talk about Tyron Smith, he he working with Zach Martin, that was a great combo side of the line that Dak Prescott really took advantage of. Is that offense going to look the same without that extra piece out there covering his blind side? You know, Tony Pollard, that's probably going to be somebody that finds a new home or at least has somebody breathing down his neck for RB1 position because Jerry Jones is all in this year like he hasn't been every other year. It's just weird. But I did want to mention real quick about Kirk Cousins. I don't know if the Falcons should be the best landing spot for him, but I get it. He's such a family guy, and his wife is from that area. They're moving to that area. It all just seems kind of congruent to. He's basically off the market. I think everybody has kind of said that up to this point. I mention him specifically because I feel like you're going to see maybe 7 or 8 quarterbacks determine the rest of every free agent that's out there of where everybody lands. And I'm talking quarterbacks from free agency to the draft. Between Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jalen Williams, but you go to the free agents like Kirk Cousins, you're going to have Russell Wilson. I You're going to have Gardner Minshew. You know, even though he should be a quarterback, but he started enough games where there is value in him. You know, there's so many on Geno Smith. I don't know if that happens this year, but it's probably going to happen. Drew Lock probably going to happen. There's all these quarterbacks that we're talking about. I think the more interesting ones are the ones in the back end of the quarterback class coming out between Penix, between Nix, between um, Spencer Rattler. You know, where those quarterbacks go, that can determine how much these teams are willing to put into these free agents. Because the league itself is leaning more on draft picks because they're seeing the value of that rookie contract and what it can do versus how tight the salary cap has become with for players that have proven themselves in the league for several years.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really going to decide. I feel like once the dominoes fall, or once a couple things happen, the dominoes will fall. Justin Fields, if that trade ends up happening, I feel like you're going to start seeing some other pieces starting to get filled into throughout the NFL. But it's going to be an interesting one. This is a loaded free agency and a loaded draft, so there's going to be a lot of chaos happening.
For somebody that likes the business side of the NFL, I certainly enjoy this. This
Yes.
is a lot of fun for me. I
Yeah.
I enjoy looking at things from the franchise perspective, and I think that's kind of where I'm going with this whole idea on the quarterbacks. Is you have to know where to allot your money,
Hmm.
and you're not going to know where to allot your money until you have your captain, and that captain has to be your quarterback.
Yeah.
Your captain cannot be the left tackle. It's got to be your quarterback. And until we know who is going to be where, I think these free agents are going to kind of, for the most part, sit where and just kind of feel out where they would provide value and where they could wind up.
Yep. Yep. Well, moving right along, college football. Yes, you heard me right. College football, spring practices, everything is right upon us, and we want to talk about a way too early top 10. And this is via ESPN right here. These rankings. Me and Ed will towards the end. We'll probably kind of throw in our own, but this is ESPN's way too early top 10 in college football. And number one, no surprise, Georgia Bulldogs. Although they're losing Brock Bowers, who is a generational tight end talent, who has given them plenty on offense, as well as Lad McConkey. They are getting some very key pieces, though. Additions. I mean, Trevor Etienne from Florida, London Humphreys, KJ Bolden. I mean, they're a powerhouse, not only on the recruiting trail, but in the transfer portal as well. They're the new Alabama. They're up there at the top. They're the team that everybody wants to play for. And can you blame them? I know I can't. So they're at number one. I'm gonna let Ed take number two.
Well, number two, according to ESPN, is the Texas Longhorns. I'm all about it. You know, we are losing a lot of pieces as a Texas Longhorn fan. I'll say it in terms of we, just as a fan. We're losing a lot of offensive firepower and losing two of the best D tackles in the country. But that doesn't mean that we don't have weapons still. It's not like Sark has just said, "Oh, we're good." No, they. It is the program right now is under the motto "all gas, no brakes," and that's truly what this is turned into. Now, do I think that they are the number two team in the country? We'll talk about that here in a minute, but that's where they are according to ESPN. And, you know, with the players that we have coming in, there's certainly an argument to be made for that, but there's also an argument to be made for number three. And who's that, Matthew?
None other than quack quack Oregon Ducks. Uh, did not end the season how we wanted to. Of course, I mean naturally you want to play and win a national championship, and that did not happen for Oregon. But their future is very bright, especially going into this next year. We did lose 50-year-old Bo Nix as well as our starting running back and wide receiver and center. I mean, Jackson Powers Johnson. If you've watched the combine and seen a lot of the takes from the scouts, this guy's a stud. I watched him play college, of course, so I saw it firsthand. But it's going to be tough to fill those holes. But we did get Dylan Gabriel, who is a tremendous talent. We got him in the transfer portal. We got Dante Moore back. If you didn't know, Dante Moore originally was committed to the Ducks, who then pulled his commitment to go to UCLA and then kind of learned, well, probably shouldn't have done that. I'm going to go back to the Ducks. But the name I have not mentioned here, it's not even a player. It's their coach, Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning is an amazing recruiter, but he's this coach that everyone just wants to play for. And I see why. I see the guy and I see the grind. Will never forget the day we lost to Washington in the Pac-12 championship game. That very next day, he was already on the recruiting trail. This guy's committed to a winning culture in Oregon, and I love and I respect it as a Duck fan. It's nice to see that I would love to play for him if I was a player. So Oregon's heading in the right direction. Three could possibly be a stretch, especially the likes of the next couple teams. And number four, Ed, who's that?
My fellow SEC compadre, Alabama Crimson Tide. Uh, we, I'm sure Matthew, you're happy to see Kalen DeBoer go away from Washington and wind up in the Southeast versus staying up in the Pacific Northwest and having to face Oregon every year.
Yeah,
I'm sure you're very happy about that.
absolutely.
Well, Alabama was happy to have the opportunity to get Kalen DeBoer when Nick Saban decided to said this was enough. He made it public, not here recently, that it was the attitude of the players that really kind of pushed him over the edge and said, "This is enough. I am not in tune with the players that I have now, so it's time for me to do something else." And that left one of the biggest voids in college football history at one of the blue blood programs that has been since day one. Well, Kalen DeBoer, he has certainly got the pedigree to do it, and he's got some players coming in to uh, basically reload the cabinet, even though there's been some back and forth as far as, well, I wanted to play for Saban, I'm going to go back in the transfer portal, this, and that. DeBoer is a hell of a coach. He's going to do great. And I certainly look forward to seeing how he meshes with those players that were Saban guys, along with the guys that he has coming in and getting that whole thing worked out. It may take a couple of games for it to all really work out, but I don't see them taking as large a step back as what some people might have in mind.
Yeah, I'm interested more to see how he meshes with the fans, the boosters, because no offense to Washington, the Pacific Northwest, but SEC lives and breathes football. There's a lot more pressure, not only being down there, but also being the successor to Nick Saban. So that's why I'm interested to see how he's able to mesh when it comes to that, because it's going to be pretty cutthroat down there, and not like how it was in Washington. This is going to be more severe down in the southeast.
Yeah, there's a reason why coaches have to be successful at a program for long term, typically, before they take the step into a blue blood program.
Well, and speaking of that, fans that want their coach fired, Ohio State got them at number 5. Ryan Day is not uh, biggest fan, or Ohio State's biggest fan right now. He's Michigan's biggest fan because, or Michigan's his biggest fan because, well, they beat him the last 3 years. But Ohio State at 5, although they did lose, to Michigan this last year, they've had a tremendous offseason, of the likes of the transfer portal and recruiting. These guys still believe in Ohio State, whether it's the name itself, or that they're always relevant. Ohio State is still going to be up there, fighting for the Big Ten title at the end of the year. So ESPN's got them at number 5. Yes, they are losing their first year quarterback in Kyle McCord, and of course Marvin Harrison Jr. to the NFL draft, which that's going to be impossible to fill that shoe, at least for him. Quarterback McCord wasn't the best. They did bring in Will Howard, who I don't think is the best either. I think it's pretty much the same comp. But they have gotten a lot within the recruiting cycle that I could see why they're up there at number 5. I mean, some people may have them up higher.
Also, the coaching recruiting.
Yeah.
because this year they get Chip Kelly to run that offense, and that is a total different ball of wax versus what Ryan Day's been running the past few years.
Oh, it's polar opposite. It almost seems weird to see Chip Kelly there. I don't see the fit, but it may just work. That's how college
They
football is.
they've got history,
Yeah.
so that's a big part of it. I do think that a coach that has only lost 5 games in 3 years should not be in such a bad position with the fan base. But this is Ohio State. There's only one game that matters. You could be 1-11. As long as you beat the one, you're
Mhm.
safe.
You're good.
You're good. I
Yeah.
mean, they ran John Cooper out of town and he won every year.
Yeah.
So that's that's just how it is there.
Mhm.
So having them at 5, I I I can see why ESPN has that. I might have some disagreements here when we start reshuffling the deck here.
Absolutely. I'll let you take 6 though right now.
Oh, it's that team up north, according to the team at number 5. Uh, it is the Michigan Wolverines, which basically have 7 offensive linemen. They're starting running back, they're starting quarterback, and a plethora of other players going in the draft, and their head coach going into the NFL. It just goes to show you what a machine Michigan has become to lose all of that and still be known as a top 6 team in the country before anything else happens. That is that is a testament to what Harbaugh built there and the fact that it's going to stay consistent with even without him there. This is going to be a very interesting team to watch to see how they work this year as the roster's been built uh, by what used to be their OC and now is their head coach. As a Texas fan watching basketball, I feel like it's kind of a Rodney Terry situation. You know, he didn't build the roster, but he knew how to coach it. So it's going to be a matter of how Sharon Moore actually puts that roster together. That's going to be the biggest difference with where they are placed right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He does have big shoes to fill, but he's already been within that program. So I think that there's a level of comfortability there amongst him and the players that I think is going to mesh pretty good this first season as head coach. But I want to talk number 7. This one is actually probably the most interesting one to me that I'm actually looking forward to next year, just seeing how they do. And that's Ole Miss. Ole Miss had a great year this year. I mean, a great year. The Lane Train was steamrolling, and no other team did better in the transfer portal than Ole Miss did this year. The Ole Miss really made huge strides within the transfer portal, but they gonna be able to ever get over the hump of beating Alabama? Nick Saban's gone. So that's pretty much the biggest question. Just like Ohio State and Michigan, are you gonna be able to beat the other? Well, the same thing kind of applies to Ole Miss. Is they can never beat Alabama, really. I mean, they've done it before. Yes, I'm not saying that it's impossible. We have seen it, but that seems to be where they get stumped every year, including this last year. They probably would have actually ended the season in the SEC championship game if it was not for that loss to Alabama. So Ole Miss, very interesting one because they have done a lot right of the right things this off season, but is it going to show on the field?
Yeah, exactly. And another one of those coaching recruitment things, they just picked up Arnett, who was the
Yes.
head coach of the other side of the Egg Bowl the past couple of
Hmm.
years.
Yep.
So that's a flex on a flex right there.
I they're brewing something there, I'm telling you, because what they did in the transfer portal and now, on the coaching tree, it's starting to look pretty good over there at Ole Miss. So we'll just see.
Oh, for sure.
But number 8,
Mizzou, Mizzou, Mizzou. The the boy Drinkwitz got the boys drinking something. They they they're drinking Eli's magic juice.
yeah,
You know, and that's he would Drinkwitz was on the hot seat going into last year. He had just a basically the team come together, and it really started with that Kansas State victory. Just out of nowhere, found themselves winning that game, which they should have lost, but they won, and that gained the confidence to continue to do what they did the rest of the season, ending in an 11-2 record overall, which wasn't that the most wins that Missouri's ever had, or am I? Oh, I'm forgetting about the year that they played Kansas in the national title. It was it was weird. Um, but that team in and of itself, it has lost some major pieces, especially at running back. But that doesn't mean that Drinkowitz is going to let them fall off at all. That is definitely a program on the rise, just like this next program that we see on the list here.
yeah. Number 9, Arizona Wildcats. Although they lost their head coach, this is a team that showed resilience this last year and pretty much took the country by storm. They finished the year 10-3 overall and 7-2 in the Pac-12. And the Pac-12 was no joke this year. This was their last year, and teams came and they showed out in the Pac-12. And the Arizona Wildcats, they did just that. Noah Fafita at quarterback, he really surprised a lot of people. I just don't think anyone expected Arizona to even do this. They're known for their basketball, but this football program really took over last year, and it was pretty cool to see because it's something different. Just like Missouri did this last year too. It was different when you have a conference that is usually dominated by the same couple teams every year. To see a new team like this come out of the blue, like Arizona did, was impressive. So they caught my attention, being an Oregon fan, and they caught a lot of others' attention. But it's going to be a new year this year, new conference. We see if they can do that. But ESPN thinks they can. They got them at number 9.
Yeah, and in number 10, we've got Notre Dame. Another year, another transferred in quarterback from the ACC. You know, are we going to see the same result? Probably. I really don't have much hope for them because there's really no reason why they should have a lot of confidence in being a top end program. This is a program that hasn't won a national championship in 35 years. Why are they being heralded as one of the biggest programs in the country right now? They've got to prove it somewhere. And they really have a hard time proving it when they're not in a conference. Get in a conference, win some conference titles. You'll have some stuff next to your name that you can say, "Oh, I did this." Right now, they can't do that because they're playing Army and Navy every year. I I love seeing the academies play them, but that's not helping their case as far as in postseason play. And I do expect them to do well, but I don't expect them to be top 10 by the end of the year. That's that's just kind of where I see it. And if we're looking at how things shuffle around, I'm only really going to shuffle the top 5 uh, just for time's sake. Really, I would I do believe that Georgia is number 1. Matthew, would you agree with me there?
Yep.
I'm actually going to jump Ohio State to number 2. I think they've got too much going for them at this point to not be there. Who do you have it to?
I actually have Texas at 2, and so
Okay.
I think that Texas, belongs there. I truly believe so. I don't have Oregon at 3. I have Ohio State at 3. So, I mean, we were kinda close there. Do you have Texas at 3 then?
I have Oregon at 3.
Okay.
I have Texas at 4 and Alabama at 5.
Okay, yeah, so I moved Oregon to 4, moved Alabama to 5, but this is where 6, 7, and 8, I'll keep the same, but I do have to throw a wrench into this. This is just a prediction of mine, but I'm gonna move Arizona to 10, and in that 9 spot, I'm putting Miami. I think Cameron Ward was the best addition probably in college football this year that, people aren't really talking about. Cristobal at the end will lose, but I think that Miami is gonna have actually an amazing year this year because of Cameron Ward.
I am going to move out Notre Dame,
Yeah.
and I am going to put in the old stalwart, the old little brother. I'm going to put Penn State in.
Drew Aller's the guy, I'm telling you.
Drew Aller's everything. No, it's really the fact that Drew Aller's been there for a year,
Mhm.
and we're already going to have 4 Big Ten teams in the top 10 because you take your 3 previous and your new Oregon. Those are going to be your Big Ten teams. Drew Aller's been there, and they tend to play a schedule that favors them. I don't have their schedule in front of me right now, but I don't see them falling off that badly because it's such a consistent program from the top down.
Yeah. Yeah, they're guaranteed a 9+ win season probably every year, and
Absolutely.
they find a way to do it. So we'll see if they continue to do so. I don't know how James Franklin still is there, but it's probably because of the consistency of the 9+ wins every year.
So essentially, we're going to have 5 SEC, 4 uh, for me, 5 SEC, 4 Big Ten, and 1 Big 12.
Yeah.
Which Arizona, can they step into the Big 12 and fill the void that's left by Texas and Oklahoma leaving? That's going to be the biggest question mark. Because I'm a big believer in Kleinman at Kansas State.
Mhm.
So I'm really interested to see where that sits. And then you've got Utah coming in as well.
Don't forget, come on. Colorado, it's prime time, baby.
Oh,
How'd you forget about that? No, Utah, I can't believe that I actually kinda missed them. Cam Rising's coming back, so they could easily be close here to the top 10 with Cam Rising there, so, Big 12, that's gonna be a interesting one on who's actually gonna win that conference come the end, but really quick before we run out of time here, I want to talk about the Live Tour. Do you want to give a quick update on the whole world rankings situation?
so with the Live Tour, they've been lobbying to try and get world rankings points for the victories in their tournaments, which those rankings actually equate to cash for the players that are at certain levels. Well, to me, you went to Live to get the bag. So if you're going to go get the bag, you get everything that comes with it. You do not get to play in this sandbox and then get mad when this sandbox says, no, you cannot play with these toys. That
Mhm.
is not part of it. If you want to go out and golf with in shorts on a professional tour, you go and do that. But don't whine that you're not getting your world rankings carried over or increased when you are not part of the organization that really put together the world rankings and is recognized for world rankings. To me, it's just ludicrous that they would even go this far.
Yeah, I mean, it's like You loaded up the Thanksgiving plate. You put 10 different things on there. You poured gravy, and gravy's on everything now. You did that to yourself. You're just gonna have to eat it because it's still good. But, you got the bag, you got the gravy, deal with it. But, I mean, like, John Ram came out and, he's not been a big fan of the world rankings anyway, so he's trying to find, a good thing to it, but it's like it is what it is at this point. You made that choice until they could come to unanimous type of decision together. It's just gonna continue to be like that, and you're gonna continue to get millions and millions more dollars.
Absolutely.
Speaking of millions of dollars, there's a player that made millions of dollars in college football, and he wants to talk about morals, boycotting. That is Johnny Football, Johnny Manziel boycotting the Heisman until Reggie Bush gets his back. I will say this first and foremost: Reggie Bush deserves his Heisman. That's my point right there. He was one of the best players that we've seen in college football. He earned that. He deserved that. Did he make some other decisions that he knew of or may not have known of off the field? Yes. Johnny Manziel did too. Johnny Manziel won his Heisman. He still has his Heisman. And now he is speaking out on, "Oh, I'm gonna boycott this until they give Reggie Bush his Heisman back." Will we ever see it? Maybe the same day Pete Rose gets inducted. It could be that same day because, like we said yesterday, no one wants to be proved wrong. So the NCAA and the Heisman, they don't want to overturn this.
I just find it funny how it appears that Johnny Manziel does not know how the Heisman works. It is baffling to me because it isn't the Heisman committee that took away the Heisman. It's the NCAA. So he's going to boycott himself from the Heisman committee to get a trophy back that somebody else besides the Heisman committee took away from Reggie Bush. What? Do you not read your bylaws? Oh wait, you never went to class. All you did was party and make money behind closed doors.
Yeah.
The other the second point I would make on that is Reggie Bush, while I believe he needs to have his Heisman back because the world has changed. We live in a different world now than when that took place. But I understand why it happened because he broke the rules of the time that he was playing. And there needs to be something to that. It doesn't need to be handed back to him immediately, or I don't know, but I would say there still needs to be a uh, a time limit that he's got to sit without it before he's allowed to have it back. Not just the day after NIL becomes a thing.
Mhm.
It needs to. He still needs to pay the piper for X amount of time. The statute of limitations. That's the phrase I was
Yeah.
thinking of. The statute of limitations. He needs to hang out and serve that time without his Heisman now that NIL has taken place. But eventually, I think he will get it back. He's just got to give it some time, as opposed to just a year out of the box of NIL becoming a as big a deal as it is right now.
Yeah, and at the time, it was, like, the only punishment that they could really come up with. What are you gonna do, fine a college player?
Right.
Like, there at the time, it was kinda the only punishment, so now things have changed, and so I agree with you, Ed, there that they just have to come up with a different resolution now, once the time has been served, but, speaking of NIL, one of the biggest deals this last offseason is the release of NCAA. 25 video game. And name, image, and likeness was one of the biggest issues with this game even being made. And now we've got mm, so many players in this game. There's one of them that's not. Well, that doesn't want to be represented in the game, and that is none other than Arch Manning, the Longhorns. And his reasoning, I'll let you actually go over the reasoning, Ed, just because this is your guy here.
Well, Arch Manning has tried to do everything in his power to not be in the spotlight. He hasn't done anything to deserve having his name on the field, let alone be represented in a video game. So why would he rush to do that? His rating, I've heard things like, "Oh, his rating is going to be terrible. It'll be a bad look for the Manning family." Who cares? He has really proven that he is trying to build up his football IQ, his football savvy. So when it's time for him to take over the team, he will take over the team. And for some reason, the media that is surrounding them on a national scale and quite honestly on a local scale somehow forget that he is not the starting quarterback of the Texas Longhorns. Quinn Ewers is the starting quarterback of the Texas Longhorns, and he opted in first day. It was like, okay, great. You opted in. Fantastic. His backup says, nah, I'm good for now. I want to make sure that there's a good reason for me to be on that video game, not just because of my name. And all of a sudden, he's a bad guy for it. I've had so many people tell me that he's just selfish because
Mhm.
no, I think it's more selfish for him to want to be on it because of his last name than actually be on it because of what the product he puts on the field is.
Yeah, I mean they're labeling it as some attention grabber, and that to me that is not the case at all. Arch does not want to be the center of attention. He's just going to get it regardless, and he wants to be in something that he deserves to be into, and that is I wanted to work my way up to be quarterback one, and then I deserve to be in that game. I don't really necessarily deserve to be in it right now because I haven't done anything, and I fully support that reasoning. I find nothing wrong with that reasoning, but media is going to take it one way or another. That's up to them. He knows the truth and how they're his reasoning, and that's fine by me. So just
Definitely.
that's just how what we live in right now. But that is about all we have today, folks. We really appreciate you guys hopping in and supporting us, watching these videos. You can continue to do that, and also hit that like and subscribe button, and share these videos to others. We appreciate getting our names out there, and then also in the comments section, put your thought on who you think is going to be the top free agent signing and the predictions of where they may end up going. I feel like we know Chris Jones is probably going to go to another team. Who's that team going to be? Put that in the comments. And then also top 10, early top 10 college football rankings. Who do you see up there? Do you agree with us? Is there a surprise team that we might have missed? I mean, there's a lot of teams that could surprise people this year. So go ahead and put that in the comments section as well. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. We're going to continue to give you the best that we can. But till next time, guys, we are rounding third and headed for home.